Welcome, welcome, welcome. These New York Mets are making it look easy as they win once again over the Philadelphia Phillies 5-1. And again, the New York Mets in cruise control, in my opinion, making pitches when they need to make pitches, getting clutch hits, big performances again from their big hitters. Lindor, another 3 hits. Alonso, another 2 hits. RBI. Vientos, that big double in the first inning. Torrens, that big 2-run double in the seventh. I mean, the New York Mets up and down that lineup getting it done. And, you see after the game, New York Mets winning despite Juan Soto not being hot. Wow, that's good. That's good. I mean, folks, this is phenomenal. I heard, oh, you know what? The Phillies are going to be that next big test. What test? It's same old, same old. Phillies are in another category. They might be a nice team, but they are not on the Mets level. I said going into the series, I said going into the playoffs last year, yes, the Philadelphia Phillies are a good team, but this is not a team that scares me. I hope this is proving to most of the MLB prognosticators the Mets have better hitters, better pitchers, and better bullpen. Maybe the names look nicer: Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Christopher Sanchez, but the New York Mets pitchers are getting the job done. At the end of the day, that's what matters. I mean, if you highlight the pitching matchups going into this, Griffin Canning, Tyler McGill versus Aaron Nola, Christopher Sanchez, you would think that the Phillies have the advantage. But no, Griffin Canning went out there throwing 95, 96 miles per hour. And I'm like, wow, this guy was a guy that averaged 92. But Griffin Canning, what the Mets saw in him, what they are developing in him, give that lab credit, because another stellar performance. Griffin Canning had to make some pitches. He had to get out of some jams. But every single time he came into one of those situations, he came through. Today, 5 innings pitched, 7 hits, 1 earned run, folks. 1 earned run, 5 Ks, gets the win. Very respectable performance. Christopher Sanchez, on the other hand, had trouble early on. He threw a lot of pitches, especially in the first inning. The Mets were making this man work. Early on, the Mets put pressure. Lindor starts off the game, hit. Oh my God, Mr. Lindor, Francisco Lindor. Could it be possible that the Mets have 3 MVP candidates? Possibly. I know Pete Alonso and Lindor are making their early bids known, and I expect Soto to get hot at some point, but you have Lindor coming through right off the bat, putting pressure off Sanchez, and then you have Soto coming up, and I got to say, Soto, he looks very over anxious. I mean, they are throwing him breaking balls galore, changeups galore, and then when they throw him a fastball, it's never on the plate. Throw him a bunch of changeups around the plate, and when they throw a fastball, it is 2 feet inside, 2 feet outside, up, down. So they are making Juan Soto very uncomfortable. He's got to lay off some of these breaking balls, some of these off-speed pitches, so that he can get a fastball that he can do some damage with. It'll come. The guy's obviously, he's pressing, and you know what? He sees Lindor doing good. He sees Pete doing good. He knows he has an $800 million contract. It'll happen. All right. So Soto, a little over anxious. You could see it in his first at bat. But again, he was trying to work the count as much as possible. But I'm going to tell you, this first inning was extremely important because I'm a believer that you must set the tone. Francisco Lindor singles, you have the force out with Juan Soto, and then you have the ground out with Pete Alonso. So you have Lindor. I believe he was forced out. So you have Juan Soto on base, and now there are two outs. And in this situation, you're running up the pitch count. You want to get a run. You want to put a run. You want to put something on the board very early. And you have Mr. Mark Vientos coming back. Folks, yet another weapon, Mr. Mark Vientos. He had the groin issues for the last 2 days, but before that, it looked like he was starting to get on a roll. So Mark Vientos is working the count, and he doubles down the left field line, bringing in Juan Soto, and the Mets go up 1-0. 1-0. So that I felt that was extremely important. In the top of the second inning, you had the Phillies trying to actually put some runs on the board. You had Max Kepler strike out to lead off the inning. JT Realmuto, he doubles. Then you had Alec Bohm single. That would put JT Realmuto to third base. So it is second and third, one out. Johan Rojas comes up to the plate. He singles. JT Realmuto scores. It ties up the game, and Alec Bohm gets to second. So you had basically Griffin Canning in a bit of a jam, in a bit of a pickle. I mean, folks, things could go south quickly, but Griffin Canning digs down deep. He gets the next batter, Bryson Stott, to ground out. Then after that, this is the top of the lineup, so this is why I'm saying you have literally a big situation here. Bryson Stott grounds out. Trey Turner's up next. He grounds out, and that was a stellar pitching performance in the top of the second, because it could have got ugly, and it could have got ugly quickly. But give Griffin Canning credit. He shut the door. Bye-bye, Philadelphia. And that's what the Mets keep doing with Philly. I noticed going back to yet last year and going back to the playoffs, anytime the Philadelphia Phillies try to mount something, get a couple runners on base, anytime they try to take control of the game, the Mets make their pitches, make their plays, and it just shows you that the New York Mets are a superior franchise. How many times can you win these series? How many times can you win these games before you say, all right, maybe the Mets are the better team, the better franchise? I don't know. All right. So the top of the second inning, it went well for the New York Mets. Bottom of the second inning, the New York Mets go back to work. They start off, Tyrone Taylor strikes out, Angel Acuna walks. Then, this is nice. Angel Acuna is on base. He just walked. And anytime he's on base, he's going to cause a bit of trouble. So you have Jose Azocar singling on a sharp line drive to center field. And this was a very nice hit. Acuna goes first to third. And then the next play was a little bit tricky. You had Acuna trying to you had Azocar leading off first base. He tried to go to second base. He was caught in a bit of a rundown. Then Acuna, who was at third base, he tried to draw some attention. And then the Phillies threw to third base. They ended up getting the lead runner, and it wasn't the best. It wasn't the smartest play. Azocar, who was on first base, probably should have just, if he got caught in the rundown, he should have gave himself up. He wasn't the lead run. All right, so now you're in a situation where you had two men on base, one out, one guy gets thrown out, he gets caught in a rundown, and now you're hoping the Mets could still capitalize. All right, okay, it's a tough loss, but you have Francisco Lindor, Mr. Clutch up, and Francisco Lindor gets a nice, easy single. I believe he went with the pitch, went to right field. Azocar scores. That was Lindor's second hit of the game, and it makes the Mets go up once again. Anytime the Phillies score, anytime another team scores for that matter, the New York Mets answer right back. And they do it in this situation, making it 2-1. Next batter would be Juan Soto, and he lines out. A lot of times when you go up and down a lineup, there has to be some outs. Like right now, Soto is that out, unfortunately. But I see so much potential in this offense. It's not even funny. If you look at the OPSs, there's only two OPSs on the team over 800. Lindor's 857. He's batting 301 batting average, and you have Pete Alonso batting 350 with an 1150 OPS. So you essentially have two red hot offensive players carrying the offense, and then you have a couple other players chiming in every now and then with big hits. This game being Torrens, Vientos with that big hit in the first inning. But, folks, there's so much potential with this lineup. Supposedly you have McNeil and you have Alvarez coming back on Friday. Azakar most likely is going to go down, and then possibly Brett Beatty, although I still like to see Brett Beatty up, but we will see how the decision turns out. But folks, I am so excited. I'm so excited. The Mets are making this look so damn easy. So damn easy. And I was, unlike other people who they wanted to continue to play bad teams. No, bring on the good teams. I want to prove we are superior. We are superior. Already winning another series against a team like the Phillies. Tomorrow we're going to be going for the sweep. But this game just shows you, we dominated, folks. We dominated this game from beginning to start. Again, Canning comes in, 5 innings pitch, 1 run. And then the bullpen, 4 innings pitch, allowing 1 hit. 1 hit. Unbelievable. Once Canning went out, the Philadelphia Phillies, the door was shut. The door was completely shut. All right, so the Mets would they would continue to make their pitches. They would continue to get out of situations. I would say the next time that the Phillies really mounted a big inning was I believe it was the 5th inning. Yeah, the 5th inning. First, you had the 2nd inning, and then it was the 5th inning. I have on my scorecard. In the 5th inning, Bryson Stott, he singles. You have Trey Turner striking out. So you have 1 man on, 1 out for Bryce Harper. He ends up walking. Bryson Stott goes down to second base. So you have 2 men on, 1 out, a man in scoring position, and you have the cleanup hitter up, Kyle Schwarber. And again, Griffin Canning makes a pitch and you get another ground out. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Anytime he needs a pitch, he made a pitch this game. Next batter, it's 2 men on, 2 outs. Nick Castellanos comes up and he strikes him out. I mean, folks, that would really kind of that was like the last big threat. I mean, you can go into maybe the 6th inning. Braziban comes in, he walks Kepler, and then he gets JT Realmuto to ground it to double play. Bohm singles, and Johan Rojas strikes out. And then for the rest of the game, the Phillies offense is basically nil. The Mets did a great job inducing groundouts and getting strikeouts. That seems to be what the Mets formula is. The pitching formula is ground out, and strikeouts. The Mets are going to be extremely successful. And again, each and every one of the New York Mets pitchers are being ultra aggressive. They had 4 walks total this game. Canning only 1 walk. You got to give him credit over 5 innings. Stanek, he was a little, he didn't have that good of a control, although he didn't allow any hits. He walked 2 guys in an inning, but again, there was no damage as a result. But the Mets pitchers are attacking. All right, so let's get into the 7th inning. The bottom of the 7th inning, the Mets put up another 3 spot, get a little more insurance. In that inning, you had Tanner Banks replacing Jordan Romano, and the Phillies bullpen. Again, you compare the Phillies, parts of the Phillies team to parts of the Mets team. Who has the better offense, the better stars, the better starting rotation, the better bullpen. And it's hands down, not even close. Last year, the Phillies bullpen was very, very good. This year, especially as mentioned on the broadcast, the middle relief. But the bullpen as a whole has not been doing that great. So again, living up to that reputation this year, Tanner Banks comes in. Jose Azakar would lead off the inning. He lines out. So it's 1 out. And then you have Francisco Lindor coming up. And again, he starts things off. He singles on a soft ground ball. Nonetheless, it's a single. And then you have Juan Soto. And again, once he gets going, every single time there's a rally, he makes it out. But folks, he'll get going. All right, so he makes an out on a ground out. And you have Pete Alonso coming up. Pete Alonso, again. You can't get hotter than this guy, although Francisco Lindor is sure trying to. Pete Alonso hits another freaking bullet double. Francisco Lindor scores, making the game 3-1. Mark Vientos would come up to the plate. Again, the Mets are already up 3-1, not giving up any at-bats. He works out a walk. Very, very, very important play. Works out a walk. The Phillies would make a couple different moves. Then they would intentionally walk Jesse Winker. Luis Torrens would have the next big hit. He would single on a very sharp line drive to left field. Pete Alonso scores, Mark Vientos scores, and that basically essentially made the game out of reach. Unlike the Phillies fighting back yesterday, Phillies went to sleep 5-1. Mets win. And again, you have 3 hits from Lindor, an RBI from Lindor. You had 2 hits and an RBI from Pete. That very big double from Vientos. Torrens, that big hit in the 7th, and 2 RBIs produced from that. Azakar gets into the action with 2 hits. And you like the end of the lineup getting hits because, again, that's so important, setting up the top of the lineup, putting pressure on the opposing pitcher, because if you have runners on base and now they have to face the gauntlet, the top of the lineup, it puts even more pressure on the opposing pitcher, and that is what you want. That is certainly what you want. New York Mets yesterday won 5-4. That was a great game. We didn't do a recap on that game, but Francisco Lindor, oh my God, what could you say? 2 home run game yesterday, leads off the game, then has a 3-run homer in the 7th. What could you say? Francisco Lindor really truly is making, another bid. Last year, he started getting hot in June, right? So now he starts hitting April 10th. So he's getting hot much, much earlier. What you wanted to see? I mean, you certainly want to see a full season of Francisco Lindor playing at superstar level. I mean, the numbers last year, he got to the 2nd MVP position. Wow, I'd sure love to see a full season of superstar Francisco Lindor. And I said the first week and a half when Francisco Lindor was not playing well, I said, hey, just relax, be patient. Couple things. Number 1, this guy, it takes him a little bit to get going. But number 2, his wife was pregnant. His wife was pregnant. They were expecting a child. I mean, there was a lot of things on his mind. A couple of days after the birth of his son, he starts to settle in naturally, and he gets going. So I think it was a very viable reason why he got off the slow start. Juan Soto, if you break things down, it is a viable reason. The guy is just trying to settle into a brand new home, super anxious. So there are reasons. And the rest of this lineup, like I said, Jeff McNeil's going to help out the lineup tremendously. He's going to help out the depth. I'm interested to see how the center field works out. In the news conference yesterday, you had David Stearns notating that the center field position will most likely be manned by Tyrone Taylor, who's doing an admirable job manning center field. But then you're going to have other players filling in. You're going to have potentially Jeff McNeil in center field. That's interesting. Jeff McNeil plays everywhere. Center field, we haven't seen, I don't know if he's played any center field, but left field, right field, yes. But this guy, I don't put anything past Jeff. He's been amazing wherever you play him in the field, except maybe third base a couple of years ago. Had trouble with that throw to first. But, besides that, Jeff's been very admirable wherever you put him. So I don't see him struggling in center. And then you have Luis Angel Acuna possibly, getting reps and playing center field. So the Mets are doing that to create more flexibility in their offense, give themselves more weapons when they play a lefty or versus a lefty versus a righty. Now they don't have to put Acuna on the bench. Now they don't have to put McNeil on the bench. They can have both those two in the game, maybe McNeil at second, Acuna in the outfield or at center field. So the Mets will have options. And also, it was mentioned that Nimmo would play a little of center field as well. But David Stearns really just gave an early synopsis of how good the New York Mets have been. And, this was basically, the expectation. I think to some extent, David Stearns is surprised that the Mets are this good. Maybe he's being a little bit modest. But, just based on the track record of last year, I told, people just calm down. You heard in the beginning of the year how the Mets, based on projections from some very nervous people, that the Mets would have the worst pitching staff historically. I mean, that has so far been such a historically bad projection, prediction, because the Mets have been historically good in the rotation, and they have been the leader, the tops in all of MLB in terms of probably pitching overall for most of the season. So you have to give them credit. The Mets have the best record in all of baseball. Now they are 4 games ahead in the NL East and climbing, folks. I know. We haven't been in this position. It is April 23rd, and we are building out a very substantial lead. We are 4 games ahead of the next place team, the Phillies, and then we are 7.5 games ahead of the Atlanta Braves. I mean, the New York Mets are in such a rare position. The New York Mets are the only team in the NL East with a plus differential, a plus runs differential. They are up plus 35 in terms of allowing runs and scoring runs. They've allowed 66 runs and they have scored 101. I mean, folks, there is not another team in the NL East that has a positive run differential. This was supposed to be the beast of the NL. I mean, the NL East. So, but it just showed you how the Mets are just so much better, and it's the Mets pitching. The offense still hasn't clicked, although they have been able to sustain and they have been able to compete. But the Mets pitching is what has been elite. So you have to be very, very surprised. In fact, David Stern said they have been so elite, so good that, he said it would be impossible for the New York Mets to sustain this trajectory. And, that's fine because you have back upcoming. He mentioned that Frankie Montas, he's on track. Frankie Montas is on track to come back in late May, early June. They're going to keep on that timeline. Montas is throwing currently right now from 75 feet out, and he is another weapon coming back in late May, June. You have Manaea coming back in a month. So you have 2 big studs coming back. And that is so music to my ears. And I love that. And then offensively, I mean, you got your starting catcher, you got your starting second baseman, you got them coming back in a couple of days. I mean, you are just in such a great position. And you want to know how good of position the Mets are in? They asked David Stearns about the Daniel Nunez, a guy who has potentially the ability to close on the team. And they said, what do you think about him coming back to your team? How soon? Well, he goes, well, the thing about Nunez is we wanted to make sure that he was ready or able to pitch 2 out of 3 nights. Okay, that's fine. He's able. But now the thing is, do we have the need? And currently, right now, there's not much of a need to add another weapon. Every single option in that bullpen has been lights out. But then he quickly said that and said, you know what? He anticipates that very soon there will be a need. So he's indicating that Nunez will be back in the pen very soon. But just, that's how good the New York Mets are, that they don't need to rush this guy back who has that elite ability because they've been so damn elite. and nobody has to be rushed back. There's no pressure on Alvarez. There's no pressure on McNeil. Torrens has been filling in admirably. Acuna's been filling in admirably. There's no pressure on Manaya. There's no pressure on Montez. In fact, these guys in the back of their heads probably like, oh my God, when I come back, I got to produce. I got to produce. But that mentality is great. Everybody's got to contribute at a high level. At the end of the day, you have everybody right now pushing in the same direction. You have this team chemistry at an all-time positive high. I mean, it is super exciting to be on this team. The fans, again, I keep mentioning in every video how they have been a 10th man. Even Juan Soto said it the other day. He's like, you don't know how much that support means to a struggling ball player. New York Mets have to continue to keep that up. You have to remember, this is a long-term relationship, 15 years. That contract is, in itself is a rare contract. There's not many, I don't know any 15-year contracts. So, that is a long relationship. He's going to be here a long time. You want to make sure he's comfortable. You want to make sure that he knows that the fans are in his corner and that we are supporting him. And ultimately, I think that'll help out immensely. All right, folks, let me know what you think. The New York Mets. Let me check one thing. New York Mets. All right, so I was just checking the schedule. So, obviously we have one more game left with the Phillies. Hopefully we can have a clean sweep, making it 7 games in a row. Then we go out, we play the Nationals for 1, 2, 3, 4 games. So we have another 4 games. The Nationals, yes, they've been a little bit better, but they are nowhere near on the Mets level. So they're going to play the Nationals for 4 games. So, another opportunity to pad our win total. And then our next series will be against the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks are currently, as we speak, 14-9. They are not a very nice ball club. Very nice ball club. So that's going to be another test. So that'll be when our next test is after this Philadelphia Phillies series. And then after the Diamondbacks, we have the Cardinals again. And I think the Cardinals are a team that the Mets have their number. Then after the Cardinals, you play the Diamondbacks again. Then you play the Cubs. So, in a couple of weeks, the schedule is certainly going to tick up in competition because you're going to play the Diamondbacks a bunch of times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And then you're going to play the Cubs. And then you're going to play the Yankees the second week. Then you can play the Red Sox. Then you can play the Dodgers. So right now is certainly your time to get as many wins as possible because, it would be nice to run the gauntlet against those teams, but you got to figure those games will be a bit more competitive. But again, those games, those opportunities give your team a chance to grow because I believe the team grows when the competition is superior, when you have to test yourself and go against the limits, just like the Mets did in September last year. Everybody was worried that our schedule was going to be tough. I said, folks, if the Mets are going to do anything in the playoffs, anything, they need to be battle tested. Last September, they were battle tested. They fought every single day was a playoff game. And I think that helped them in the long run. That helped them get past the Brewers, get past the Phillies, and even put up 2 a couple very valiant, very strong matchup games against the Dodgers. So, everything I kind of said in the beginning of the season is coming true. And the team I'm probably focused right now as I'd say our number one opponent is the Padres. The Dodgers, I'm still going to say, I said in the beginning of the year, I'm not quite holding my finger on them. They've had a lot of injuries in the past. They're an aging ball club. I think the New York Mets can have their number in a series. The Padres are a bit different. The Padres almost remind me of the Mets. They have great pitching, coaching, great analytics. They have a great pitching staff, great offensive weapons. So, that's a team that's going to be a little tricky. But the New York Mets, again, growing and having all these teams that they can grow against, I think is all the more better. All right, folks, again, Let me know what you think. Drop your comments, like, subscribe. Thank you so much. I gotta thank you in advance. Again, this our new sign up's gonna be. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and have a great night, folks.